Hello. Ever since its inception, social media has affected our lives. Whether it be people making status updates, sharing photos, or posting memes, the internet and social media has proven itself as a mainstay in our day-to-day lives. One thing that social media affects that many people don't consider is presidential elections. You see, before social media, campaigns looked a lot different. Candidates had to use the mainstream media, such as television, newspapers, and rallies, to get their message across. But now, thanks to social media, candidates can say whatever they want, whenever they want, and millions of people will be able to hear this message. Now, this begs the question, how does social media affect the outcome of a presidential election? Well, that is what we're going to be looking at today. Before we can answer that question, though, we first must look at all the prior research. The first piece of research we'll be looking at is by Philip E. Converse. His study in 1962 focused on how informed voters are and how this affected who they voted for. Almost all voters will vote for their party, and the more informed they are, well, the more loyal they'll be. There are enough undecided voters to potentially swing the vote, but this tends to be unlikely. This minimal effects theory was later re-examined by Stephen E. Finkel in 1993. Finkel wanted to see if the strong hold of partisanship had broken since trust in party had gone down after the Nixon administration. This wasn't the case, however. The amount of people who changed their vote was negligible, as both sides had about the same amount of people who turned. This further provides evidence that campaigns don't affect much when it comes to persuading voters. But this is not the only function of a campaign. Finkel brings up the point of mobilization, or getting people to go out and vote. A candidate may have many supporters, but it's up to the candidate to get them to actually voice their opinions. Mobilization can be used to activate voters who didn't even know how they felt. Campaigns are used to reinforce how voters feel, and then motivate them to go to the polls on election day. Despite this evidence, campaigns have been focusing less on this. As mobilization tactics have gone down, so has voter participation and party loyalty, according to Lyons and Alexander in 2000. What was later found out by Holbrook and McClurg in 2005 was that mobilization tactics only tend to work on partisans, not independents. It seems that independents seem to respond most to information as they don't have a party to cling to, and mobilization doesn't excite them. Independents look at all factors before deciding to vote, and vote for whoever fits their values closest. Campaigns do a lot to inform people, but this doesn't always necessarily mean it can sway a vote, according to Arsenault in 2006. People can learn a lot from a campaign, but still feel how they feel about a candidate after. Many people go with their party, despite what the information tells them. So while it is true that the best thing a campaign can do is inform, it doesn't exactly help out a campaign in the long run. This brings forth the conclusion that the best thing a campaign can try to do is mobilize their partisan voters. Now that we know all that we need to know about campaigns, we can shift gears and focus on the research done on social media. There have been many studies about social media and how it affects elections. One study looked at the 2012 election and how the Republican primary candidates used Twitter. This research was done by Hong and Nadler in 2012. The study examined if a candidate's Twitter activity correlated with the amount of mentions they received. While they didn't find much statistically, they did find the potential for this idea to occur in future elections. Twitter has grown a lot since 2012, and politicians have accepted it and begun to learn how to use it. Many politicians have begun to evolve beyond what people expected of them. On Twitter, they're talking like everyday people, for better or for worse. Another study surrounding the 2012 election looked to see if Twitter could be used to predict elections. This study was done by Kazim Jahanbakhsh and Yumi Moon, and it looked at the frequency and total amount of times Obama and Romney were tweeted about. It turns out that Obama was the one talked about most frequently during the election. Romney would pick up speed after a debate, but things would quickly return to normal. It is also interesting to note that Obama received the most positive tweets and negative tweets. In the end, though, Obama won the presidency, while also having the most Twitter publicity. There are, of course, flaws in this study. Not everyone is on Twitter, especially in 2012, so it's hard to say that since Obama got the most Twitter mentions and won, we can always count on this metric. This is also the only election that this research could have been done on at the time, and right now there's really only 2 other elections this hypothesis could be tested on.
Along with social media, there has also been an increase in fake news. False information has always been a thing, but now is able to spread like wildfire with Twitter and Facebook. In a 2016 study, Alcott and Genzow looked at this. Fake news has become an issue due to social media, no matter which side one leans. There's fake news on both sides, and social media has allowed this to happen. The research that they did shows that this is a real issue and one that needs to be taken care of. Almost 30% of people's number one source of election information came from the internet in 2016, with about half of that being social media. This is a huge number of voters that have the possibility of finding fake news and using it to inform their vote. Finally, in 2016, the Pew Research Center studied many social media mobilization strategies. The study shows how candidates have been using social media in different ways. These tactics will be important to look at in this research. The candidates each posted about 350 times in a 1-month period, split up between Twitter and Facebook. The candidates also use a wide variety of social media's functions, such as retweets, @mentioning other users, linking to other media, and using video and images. All the candidates use these strategies in a variety of different ways and quantities. Some were able to do better than others with certain tactics, seen by the amount of responses the candidates would receive. Some posts would become more popular than others, but what made some posts generate more attention than others? How do we know if support on the internet translates into support at the polls?
After looking at the research, there are a few important things that we can gather. Number one being that mobilization seems to be the most effective tactic that a campaign can use. While the research showed that the effects of informing voters and persuading voters tend to be negligible, mobilization shows a lot of potential for getting voters to go to the polls.
We have also learned that there are many mobilization strategies that candidates can use on social media, but we don't exactly know how effective they are. Of course we know who won the elections, but we still don't really know how effective these candidates were in using social media to their advantage.
So going forward, we'll be looking at how effective these social media strategies are in mobilizing voters come November.
The theory we will now be testing is fairly simple. When it comes to presidential elections and social media, a presidential candidate's social media use will affect the voter turnout.
Along with this theory, we will also be testing 3 hypotheses. 1, a candidate who uses social media effectively will have a higher turnout in the election. 2, a candidate who doesn't use social media effectively will see a lower voter turnout. And 3, candidate who uses retweets, shares, and embedded media will be considered more effective.
For our sample, we will be looking at the 2012 and 2016 presidential elections. We'll be looking at the Twitter and Facebook posts of Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Mitt Romney. We will be looking at the 5-month period between July and November, as this is the time period between each party's national convention and the election. The dependent variable we will be looking at is how many votes a candidate receives, and the independent variables will be the mobilization strategies used, how much a candidate posted, and where the candidates posted.
I will also be testing for the following control variables: age, gender, race and ethnicity, education, income, employment, and location.
In order to test the theory, we will be analyzing the posts from the sample time period, and we will also be using a survey of my own creation. Questions can be seen here.
Now you may be asking yourself, what's the point? Well, I can tell you that the implication of these data will be very important for the years to come. Whether we like it or not, social media and elections are connected now, and they will be for a very long time. So if a candidate is able to look at these data and use them properly, they'll have a very important page in their playbook. You see, with things like Twitter and Facebook, it's very easy to find out the core demographics of your following. And a candidate who is able to use the right social media strategy that resonates with their core following, well, they're going to have a lot more people showing up for them come November. So if a candidate really looks at all these data and really learns how to use social media effectively, the truth is, they're going to be the ones who find themselves in the Oval Office come January. I've been Michael. Thank you. Before social media, candidates had to rely on the news media. Ugh, oh my god, it was good. Oh. Whether it be people sharing status updates, status? You know what I need? I need a teleprompter, that would help a lot. Mobilization shows a lot of potential for getting voters to go to the polls. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Too bad there was more after that. So going forward, we will be looking at the question. What was the question? So going forward, we'll be looking at how effective these social media strategies are at how affecting, with these, I've used the word affecting way too much already, haven't I? Along with this theory, we'll also be testing 3 hypotheses. Hypotheses. Oh god, what's the plural for that? 1. A social media candidate person will be a person who uses social media. And we'll also be testing the following control variables: age, income, employment, and location. I did that out of order. But I can change it in the PowerPoint so it looks good. And if a candidate is able to use these research, whether we like it or not, social media and elections are connected now. It's true, it's a fact. That's all you need. Conclusion.